Hello y'all, Set to Achieve. Welcome to yet another video. Please, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and join the family, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share, and leave your comments. And I want to talk about something that is sensitive, but it needs to be talked about. And that is, what are the leading emotions of someone, my microphone, of someone that is trapped in a toxic marriage, okay, a toxic relationship, especially marriages, okay. What are the prominent emotions that actually rule a lot of people that are in these situations, okay? And I'm going to tell you what they are, okay? So first and foremost, fear. What is keeping them stuck in these situations? Okay, why can't they just pack their bags and leave? Okay, so fear of what? Fear of the unknown. You know, a lot of times people are comfortable, they get comfortable in their toxicity. A lot of times people get comfortable in their pain. They get comfortable even in the abuse, okay? And even though they know it's bad, and even though they know that they should leave, but they're comfortable because that's what they know, okay? It's the abuse that they're familiar with, you know? And, asking them to leave, is disrupting their pattern, their cycle, because it's a cycle, so being in that toxic situation where they are being gaslit, there's probably cheating going on behind the scenes, or even known cheating. Maybe they have men or women calling, depending on which gender, calling the phones of their, their partner, and they're just stuck in that situation and in that routine. And the worst part about this is that there's some of them that have children, and they keep making those excuses, saying that they don't want to break up the marriage because they don't want a situation whereby they're a single parent and they're in a broken home, so they are afraid of what people will think. A lot of people are afraid of what others will think. What are people going to think about me being in an abusive pattern? But though being in an abusive pattern, but now, I'm a divorcee, what are they going to say about me? How am I going to look like when I go to like their parties and their get-togethers? People are going to be snickering and talking about me, and I'm just not going to feel comfortable, so fear of the unknown, and then fear of what people will think, okay? A lot of times it keeps these people from breaking out of toxic cycles. I watched my parents living in a loveless, chaotic, toxic marriage for years, okay? Talking about decades. And the same emotions, fear and greed, selfishness, okay? Caring more about their own status, rather than caring about the mental health of their children, okay? Greed. So greed and selfishness, they go hand in hand. They're like cousins, okay? When I was growing up and, just watching my parents, watching, the only real example I had of marriage, it was scary because it was like, I mean, is this what it's supposed to be like? And being in that child's place, there's nothing you can do. You're just helpless, and, so you end up going about with these wounds, you end up not even realizing that you are wounded, and then you end up having these codependent wounds, and become a target for narcissists because they can smell blood in the water. Like they can smell your wounds like blood in the water, okay? So a lot of people, especially women, that are in these abusive relationships and situations, marriages, they do not leave because of, well, if I leave, then I have to start all over, you know. I mean, and in fear of like what they would lose in the marriage, maybe material possessions, all those different things, and rather than putting their faith in God, because God is and actually changing their mindset that, well, God, all the things that I've accumulated in the marriage, and for a lot of them, even when they came into the marriage, it was, they really didn't have much, they built together, and then they realized that the person that they're with is a narcissist, we're just using them and and devaluing them. And it's like, now that you realize this thing, what are you going to do about it? Because I was in the same place. Now that you realize, you know exactly what it was. Because for years, for myself, I didn't know what it was that I was dealing with. I didn't know that I was dealing with a narcissist. I didn't know that I was codependent. I didn't know, even though I knew that I had the wounds from my childhood, but I really didn't understand the part that it played in my life and in my choices, So finally, when I realized everything that was going on, I had children. I have 3 teenagers that I'm raising by myself now. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I didn't know. I knew what to do, but I didn't know how to go about doing what I wanted to do. So I'm saying, I was just like I'm saying in this video, I was ruled by fear. What's going to happen? How am I going to be able to make it financially? What's going to happen to my children? Who would stay and who would leave? How would my bills get paid? And it's like, and my own fear was mostly stemmed in like family, because my mother's a narcissist, first class A, textbook, so, and even till this day, she still, her prayer is that myself and my ex-husband, my ex, would come back together, because she said I had to block her. He's a good man, um, and this and that and everything, because of her obsession. When you're dealing with narcissists, they have an obsession with what other people think about them. They are obsessed. People's perception of them is their whole world. They are ruled by, they are ruled by the fuel they get from the admiration of other people. That is their food. That is their life, because they're empty inside. They have not gone to seek out God. Okay? They've not gone to seek out Christ. Because he's the only one that can fill you up, that can fill your cup and make you feel satisfied. So because they are dissatisfied with themselves, dissatisfied with their life, a lot of times they're ruled by low self-esteem. They have very, very intensely low self-esteem. They get their fuel from what others would think about them, how people view them. So, it's very, very important that they maintain that image, at the cost of everything else. Their children can go down, their family can go down, their everything else can go down, as long as they maintain that image. That's the reason why my parents never separated or divorced, because that image, I don't want, because they term declaring to the world, that they are divorced, their marriage or whatever did not work out. They term that as failure, right? And how proud narcissists are, So, yeah, so a lot of people, that are stuck in these toxic marriages are fueled by fear and greed, selfishness, fear and selfishness. Okay? That is it. That is the bottom line. fear and selfishness. That is the reason why they don't take those steps, you know? And it's so sad because their children, at the end of the day, their children are the ones that will be destroyed by that marriage. You know, the children that have no say so, they're the ones that are going to be destroyed by that marriage. You know, so it's really sad. I remember I put out a video. It was like I think it was like a TikTok that I posted it, and the content creator, she was talking about the fact that she's with someone that she knows that he's cheating. It is very obvious to her. You know, I think the girlfriend would call her phone or call her husband's phone, and she was very aware of everything that was happening. And she mentioned something. She said that he finally came to her one fateful week and told her that, so let's say it was Monday, and he says, hey, Cynthia, her name was not Cynthia, just using names. Cynthia, I'm going to be filing for divorce. I've gone to my lawyer. I'm getting the papers together, and I'm going to be filing the divorce. By Friday, I'm going to hand you the documents, you know, that you need to sign. Okay. The only thing that would keep me from doing that is if you agree for me to bring my girlfriend to come start living with us. Okay. Because I'm done with this marriage. And so she thought about it, you know, she was upset. And at first her emotions was like she was like, no, never, you know, I'll never have another woman here, you know, having to hear her making love with you, having to hear, you know, her be with my own husband. And, you know, even though she knew her marriage was done. So that was Monday. So by Tuesday, she had all these mixed emotions. By Wednesday, she was thinking about it like, okay, so if I leave, then, you know, I'm going to lose both ways. I'm going to lose my husband. I'm going to lose the security of this house. And then I'm going to let another woman have him, you know, even though it's not the best, our situation, but, you know, at least I have a roof over my head. That's that greed, you know. So first it was the fear, I'm going to lose out. And then the greed, like, no, even though I'm tormented, even though I'm miserable, even though this situation is very toxic, but at least, you know, it's safe. You know, at least it's what I know, you know, because then if I go out there, you know, and allow him to sign the divorce papers, and then I have to start all over from scratch. I don't want to do that. So you can see the pattern. So first it was anger, then it was denial, and then from there, the greed comes in, you know. So come Thursday night, she went to him and said, you know what? Let her come in, okay? Don't conclude anything with the lawyer. Let her come in. You know, I'm willing to allow her to come in. So, guys, I mean, I don't know, you know, who you are or what your scenario is, your situation, but my advice is do not be ruled by fear or greed. I was there, you know, 2 years ago, I separated from my ex. To God be the glory, because God has taken care of me and my 3 teenagers. God has been there. God has guided me. I did a lot of fasting, and I still do to this day. Whenever I get like confused or have like just a whole bunch of thoughts going on, I go into fasting, okay? I fast. You know, I do intermittent fasting. So I would fast maybe like from 12 a.m. to like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you know, and then I like have like, you know, something light to eat for dinner. But I go into fasting just to get clarity, just to hear from God, you know, and to be able to have him direct me, you know, because I had to do a lot of fasting before I left my ex-narcissist, because there was so many thoughts going in, so much hopelessness, you know, but those thoughts of greed and, you know, hey, what's going to happen? You know, what would they say? Those thoughts did come in, but I had to fast them away. so that I could be able to hear the voice of God more clearly than the voices of the devil and the voices of all those emotions and the voices of people. You know what I'm saying? Family. Because there was so much manipulation going on that if I didn't fast and clear myself out, clear out my mind so that I could hear the voice of the Holy Spirit speaking to me, I would have still been stuck to this day. And here I am over 2 years. It was March of 2023 that I separated, and here I am in 2025, April, and God has been with me. So what I'm here to tell you is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but you have to drop the fear, okay? You have to walk by faith, because faith is the opposite of fear, and fear is the opposite of faith, okay? So a lot of people say that fear is false evidence appearing real, but there's a lot of the things that will happen and a lot of the struggles that you will go through, and starting over, you will have to start over, but when you put your faith in God, and trust in Him, He will guide you, okay? He will not let you be forsaken. He will not let you be, because the Bible says that even when you walk through the fires, I will be with you. So it does not say that you're not going to walk through the waters and the fire, but you're not going to be consumed. You won't even smell like smoke. Remember the children of Israel, the Hebrew children, that were in Babylon, and because they refused to serve the Babylon god of gold and bow down to him, they were thrown in the fiery furnace to be consumed, but God, and then it was turned up 7 times, so that even the people that turned it up were consumed by that fire. But the Bible says that God was in the fire with them. There was a 4th man. There was 3 of them, 3 Hebrew boys, and there was a 3rd man. When the king looked, it said that there was someone that appeared like the Son of God, and that was Jesus. Okay, so if you put your faith in Him, He will see you through. It does not matter what it looks like. Okay, He will give you the ability to drop that fear, the selfishness, and the guilt, all those overriding emotions, all the manipulation that are coming from the outside. He will give you the grace to drop those emotions. Okay, all those spirits that are attaching themselves to you to keep you in that bondage situation. He will give you the grace. Okay, so that you can finally leave and be set free. Okay? Because the spirit of God and of Christ is a spirit of freedom. Okay? God has not given you the spirit of fear, of love, of power, and of a sound mind. But you have to seek Him. Okay? Seek Him in your pain. Seek Him even in that chaos. Seek Him, seek His face, go into fasting, because when you do that, everything's going to be calmed down. Okay? He's going to open up your spiritual eyes so that you can see what you're in. Okay? He's going to silence that voice of fear. Okay? That demon of greed and selfishness. And I started putting myself first, and I started putting my children first. I'm like, no, I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want my daughter to grow up and think that it's okay to be in a marriage, with a man that does not appreciate her, devalues her, that makes her to be, triangulates her with all other women, and makes her feel less. Gives her the silent treatment. I would be hurt and crushed if that was my daughter. And I was watching her. I was much older, and I was watching her go through that. And she tells me, well, Mom, you didn't leave, so why should I? Okay, I would be crushed in my soul, And I didn't want my son thinking that it was okay to be that man, that thought it was okay to treat somebody else's daughter like that, So whether you're a man or a woman, and you're in that situation and you're being ruled by greed or you're being ruled by fear, I'm here to tell you that those things will destroy you. Okay? They're going to leave you in regret. Because when you look back years from now and see that your whole life was wasted, you know, because you are afraid of, afraid of all these unknown things, you know, and you failed to take a step of faith and trust in God. You know, that's a sad day. All right. So I'm going to leave, I'm going to stop here. You can leave your comments, you know, like, share, and yeah. Till next time, peace. God bless.